face on Newsline, quite a frequent guest here, and we are honored to have him again on our show. A very good morning and a very warm welcome out to you, Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando, the news editor of the Island newspaper. Shamindra, it's quite an interesting time to be a journalist. We've seen transition of power from the government of good governance to this new government. Of course, this is a little bit of a repeat of what happened in 2015. People were not happy with the administration that was in place, and they voted out that administration and got in a new administration. The country is functioning on a parliament on a government that does not have a majority in parliament. But of course, parliament has been prorogued. A lot of people express their opinion that Parliament will be prorogued again on the 3rd. Do you think that this will happen? Do you hold a similar opinion?
There's a possibility in the President putting
There's definitely the capability of proroguing Parliament.
And he has the
power.
He can exercise that power to prorogue the Parliament. Whatever happens, I believe the Parliament will be dissolved in the first week of March 2020 to pave the way for parliamentary polls in late April or early May. So within the next 4 months, we'll have a new government in power.
A new parliament?
A new government, yes.
The general election.
Government, following the parliamentary polls, yes.
But of course, the country has to survive in the interim period. The 4 months. Parliament activities of Parliament are technically non-existent currently since it's prorogued. Is this healthy for Sri Lanka?
Parliament, of course, I must tell you, this country is in this situation because of the Parliament, right? I must remind you that the Parliament did not meet, the Parliament is supposed to meet 8 days a month.
Okay.
And lawmakers skip Parliament all the time. So on a number of occasions during the Jahapalana period, they had to, they had to suspend sittings.
Due to a lack of quorum?
Yeah. So those who now talk about, point out that the Parliament has been prorogued and the President can do it again, they must also look back and see what had happened in this country over the past 4 years. Right? The Parliament turned the other way when the previous government robbed the central bank. The Parliament did not take up the debate, not up to today.
They cited a lack of translation of the copies, many reasons.
The previous government had reasons for everything. No. They robbed the central bank in 2015, did the same in 2016, and the former President, Maithripala Sirisena, waited till 2017 to appoint a commission, right? By the time he sent the report to the Parliament, Mr. Arjuna Mahindan was away, right? So I think the people of this country, the illiterate, voted the UMP out of power because it made a lot of mistakes. And I must also tell you, in 2015 also, the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, the people voted him out. Because I hope the leaders, the political parties realize that they have to do the right thing. Because people do not tolerate this, the politicians, robbing the country, wasteful expenditure, So things must change. So it's up to this government to ensure that there's transparency, good governance. They must do it.
Of course, Shamindra, the government of good governance came on a bandwagon of promises of good governance, anti-corruption. We will punish those who were corrupt. The current government that's in power, during the election campaign of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised that national security will be established in the country. That was their #1 promise. And also, going along with that promise, they also promised to eradicate corruption in the country, both at a political and a state level. Do you see that happening right now, an action being filed against people of the previous regime and as well as this regime as well regarding corruption cases?
I don't know. They have not taken any action so far.
Of course, they have brought up cases involving former Minister Partli Champika Ranawaka And
That's not a
also,
corruption case, no?
That's not a corruption case. But cases involving, and also a case of Dr. Raj Senaratne, former health minister, regarding the press briefing that he called up.
That's also not corruption, no?
That is also not corruption. Of course, we saw the same thing happen to former General Secretary of the United National Party, Tissa Attanayaka. But then...
no, that was different, no?
When he released a letter.
You know, no, that was different. No, I think this government must inquire into, the central bank fraud, like that, the major corruption cases.
But the ongoing parliamentary proceedings into the central bank issue as well, regarding a forensic report that was supposed to be submitted to Parliament, was also called off because Parliament was prorogued. Those activities are now all on hold.
No, definitely not. That was a decision taken by the central bank in consultation with the Attorney General.
Okay.
Right? But some people, for some reason, they try to politicize it. I don't think so. What really happened was the central bank consulted the Attorney General and decided that after they examine the reports, they will release it.
Okay.
Right? So it was not a political decision. But the previous government had, how many years they had?
4.5 years.
Right? Yeah, right. Now they blame this government for putting off the Parliament. So I think, you must understand the current situation. After Mr. Sajid Premadasa's defeat, now I don't consider it as Sajid Premadasa's defeat. The people rejected the UNP, right? The people rejected the UNP. And in addition to corruption cases like the central bank, the betrayal of the armed forces in Geneva, right? So, such political decisions, I think, went against the UNP in a big way. And I must also tell you, this government must ensure that those who, there were serious corruption charges against
members of this government as well.
Also, right? So they must ensure they do not do the same again.
And Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa openly admitted this right after his election defeat in 2015.
If you go through COPE and PAC reports released by the Parliament, you will realize that there were serious allegations against members of current government, current cabinet, right? Yes. So, in addition to inquiring into those accusations, this government must ensure the same thing does not happen, right? So, if you take the Parliament, almost all members, all the ministers face corruption charges, almost all.
Right.
Almost all. So, it's a very serious situation. I'm not talking about the UNP, the UPFA or the JVP. I mean, those who exercise power during the past 10-15 years, all of them
have corruption charges against them.
Very serious charges. Very serious charges. So,
and the irony is that when people at such high office can function so freely with so many corruption cases against us, it looking at us in our context. I mean, at your workplace, if you had a serious case of corruption or something filed against you, I can remember when anyone is being recruited to a place, they ask for a police report. And if the police report reflects badly on you, it will go against, their favor of recruiting you. So when such is the standard expected by the general public of the country, I think a better standard should be expected from parliamentarians.
Yes. So there's no point in complaining about President Rajapaksa proroguing the Parliament now. All of them, I think, all members of Parliament, all 225, they must examine what really happened in this country over the past 10-15 years. I do not hold only the UMP accountable for this situation. It's the Parliament as an institution has failed. Right? Now see, I will give you an example. You take the presidential election. Now, for some reason, this corrupt system, this corrupt group of people, they have their own set of laws. Right? Now, the chairman of the Elections Commission, Mr. Mahinda Deshapriya, he openly said that the expenditure went up to 7.5 billion rupees because 35 people contested.
That's about an additional 4 billion.
Almost 4 billion, right? Now the issue is, why it happened? Because Elections Commission, in terms of the law, allowed 15 former members of the parliament to contest the presidential election. Now, have you heard? 15 members of the parliament, right? So, now these 15 members of parliament, they were there. They were there to support Sajid Premadasa or Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So something wrong with our system. So we allowed these people to waste almost 4 billion rupees when our hospitals lack medicine. You can invest those funds in public transport, provide furniture to schools, So there's something terribly wrong with our system. Now, why do we have to allow 35 people to contest presidential election? Because of the 35, 33 did not poll even 4% of the vote. The JVP leader managed less than 500,000 votes. Former army commander, less than 50,000 votes, right? All the others, the former members of parliament,
less than 10,000.
So, I'm not sure of the exact figure, but really bad situation. I sincerely hope the Elections Commission, in consultation with the parliament, take meaningful action to stop this, because we cannot allow politicians to waste public funds like this. It's a crime. You take the local government setup, right? From 4,000 members of local government bodies
to 8,000.
8,000, over 8,000. Now, who is going to pay? You and me and the poor people of this country, right? So I think, first of all, the media should really focus on parliament, all of us, the print media, the electronic media, the social media, all of us. We must really inquire into what's going on in this parliament. Because the speaker, Mr. Jayasuriya, a few years back, he said they spend 4.6 million
per sitting.
Per sitting, right? Why? These people do not attend parliament. Some of the MPs just enter parliament and they just go out, and there's no way of monitoring their presence in parliament, right? So I think these all political parties, I think the UNP, the JVP, the UPF, all of them, during the last campaign, they said one country, one law. So the parliamentarians cannot have a different law. They cannot just, do anything they want to.
But I believe the parliamentarians meant with one country, one law, they referred to the communities, instead leaving themselves out.
Definitely.
But then that is not the case.
So who is responsible for this situation? So I think the people of this country voted for Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He defeated Sajid Premadasa by nearly 1.3 million votes over. So I think they picked a person who did not have any experience in local government, provincial council, parliament.
Somebody out of the loop.
Yes. So maybe the people have lost confidence in the political party system, and they wanted a person, the former defense secretary, as their leader. So it's up to him to prove that he is different from other politicians. Now, as the president, he's a politician. Now he's a politician. So it's up to him to prove that he can meet the expectation of the people of this country.
He's been in power for 1 month, Shamindra. I know that's a very short time to judge the conduct of a person on, but how do you think he has fared so far?
Very well.
Very well.
We have already, you must have noticed, the president does not attend public functions every day. Just compare the situation after November 18th and before. The president of this country, before that, I'm not only talking about Maithripala Sirisena, but all the presidents, they had public functions every day. So a lot of expenditure, right?
Protection,
a lot of traveling, the public servants going up and down. But with this president, since just after 18th of November this year, hardly any public functions. I mean, the president, I don't think has to attend public events every day. I think he visited some temples and attended few functions.
But definitely not every day.
Not every day. So I think it made a big difference. And if you watch the television, earlier the president dominated the news, all television stations. And your television station, you had a special segment for the president. If you take all the other television stations also, both private and the state-owned, you will realize there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference.
There was also expectations when it came to the appointment of the cabinet. When the initial cabinet members were appointed, people praised the conduct of the president, as there were only 16 members, if I have not mistaken, in the cabinet.
Including the PM.
Including the Prime Minister. However, a few days after, state ministers and deputy ministers were appointed, and then the cabinet just bloomed back to its old size. That was a bit of a letdown, though, in the eyes of the people.
No, actually, the 19th Amendment restricts the number of cabinet ministers to 30. Right?
And non-cabinet ministers to 40.
40.
So that's a total of 70.
So I think...
Arguably still too much for a small country.
Definitely. So I think they must amend the law to ensure the political parties, now this government in power, does not exploit the 19th Amendment, because they must not be allowed to appoint members above that figure. There's a restriction. There's a limit.
And I can distinctly remember even after
they must not allow to have cabinet ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers. You must be very clear that 40 and 30. Right? 40 and 30. So when you say 40, you must include both state ministers and the deputy ministers in that 40.
There was an additional post of non-cabinet ministers being given. During the previous regime, we saw that.
No, we must realize, I hope this government, the new government, realize they cannot fool the people.
Exactly.
Right. Because
and the people have given them that message.
Yes.
Because definitely. In 2015, the people voted in the government of good governance, and they voted out the Rajapaksa administration. Similarly, due to inaction and certain other corruption-related charges and many other reasons, the people rejected the United National Party.
Yes, so I hope the lawmakers, the current government, the present administration, does not repeat the mistakes, right?
Because if they do, they will have to answer to the general public.
In April or May, right? The parliamentary polls just months away, followed by provincial council elections. So I think.
Do you think the members of this current government can keep their hands clean until April? Or is that too much to ask?
I don't believe in politicians, I must tell you, right? So, because they had to prove. Now, see, if they, as soon as, immediately after the next parliamentary polls, if they again take duty-free car permits, if the parliament issues duty-free car permits, I am telling you, then there's no difference between the previous lot and this lot, this car. That's the truth. See, because all politicians sell their permits. And the previous government, Mr. Naganand Kodutok, he filed a case in the Supreme Court against it, and he pointed out the country,
the amount of tax money that we lose.
He said the country lost almost 7 billion rupees because of this tax exemption given to the members of parliament, right? So this government has no right to do it. They cannot repeat it, right? So I sincerely hope the lawmakers behave like lawmakers.
And step out of their little elitist circles.
Not that, I must tell you, we must understand the politicians over the past 20 years. If you inquire into their conduct, how they got wealth, you will realize almost all of them are corrupt. That's the truth.
They have no way of explaining how they acquired their assets.
They simply cannot. Right? A person who served the parliament for 30 years, he received and sold 5 or 6 vehicle permits. Yes, that's the truth. That's the truth.
Some of them have even started car dealership stores.
Definitely. Now you take the case of the previous government. The cabinet deciding to allow the former president Maithripala Sirisena to continue at his official residence.
8 billion.
So it was raised in parliament by the JVP. So can anybody justify such action? Now what will happen if all presidents and prime ministers say that they want to continue in the same bungalow? What will happen to this country? So I think you have to re-examine the whole thing, right? It's not a simple case of blaming one political party or to promoting one political party at the expense of another political party. I think the system must change. We must have very strong systems to ensure our politicians do not, exploit situations for their benefit. So it's up to the parliament to bring in laws and ensure the members of parliament behave like,
respectable citizens of the community.
Respectable. It's very difficult to expect these people to change their ways and means, but I hope they have strong systems. They have to introduce very strong systems, and they must also ensure that they review election laws to prevent waste of money, because the present election cost us 7.5 billion rupees, right? And Mr. Deshapriya says it happened because a lot of people contested, knowing very well that they cannot get even 2,000 votes. Right? The person who polled the lowest number of votes at this election, the presidential, he polled less than 1,000. A former member of the JVP. Right? So remember, of the 35, 15 were former members of Parliament, representing the JVP, the Muslim Congress, the UNP, from various political parties. Why? So our people, with the help of the Parliament and other institutions, they have a very corrupt system going. So I think it's up to the media to expose them.
And the media has been continuing to expose them, especially during the last 4.5 years. Also, with the introduction of the right to information, it definitely fortified the arsenal for media personnel to go after these cases and seek the truth.
Yes, so it's up to the media, and I think we have done a wonderful job. The media, I think Bandula Jayasekara, Faraj Shaukat Ali, all of us, we sometimes point out that media is the real opposition in this country, because when it comes to corrupt deals, those, the government and the people in the opposition, both sides benefit, all of them take duty-free car permits, bank loans at special rates.
And if there's one cause that they are united for, it's to stand for their rights,
their privileges,
their benefits.
Yes. So it's a very difficult task, but I think the media should continue to fight for the rights of the people.
Shamindra, now people already have voted for the presidential election and given their decision. Like you said, in a few short months, we will be facing a general election. In your view, what should the people look for before they go and cast their ballots?
I think all political parties must assure the people that they will not bring in defeated candidates
through the national list.
That's number one. And they must also ensure that people do not change political parties after the election. And having said that, I must tell you the people must look for stability. People must look for stability because there's no point in having a president from UPFA and a political party, say, opposing political party in the parliament. So I suggest that the people go for stability because without a stable parliament, we cannot continue. We must have a stable parliament. But just because you have a stable parliament, it's the government in power, the president included, but they ensure, transparency.
Definitely. And that matter depends on whether or not there is a good opposition in parliament, because the opposition is the element of parliament that holds the government to account and that can call them out on any corruption-related charges or any malpractices within the state. Thank you very much, Shamindra, for joining us on our show. Of course, our time is up, as always. It's a pleasure to have you here on our show.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. Until next time, take care and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.